What's wrong, Ellen?
Our neighbor, down the street, won't get rid of her gravel driveway and put in a concrete driveway.
Are you talking about Mrs. Cho, the widow down the street?
Yep.
Mrs. Cho, who lives on a fixed income and saves every penny so that she can visit her grandkids in Seattle once in a while.
Yep. So,
What's wrong with her driveway?
it is gravel.
So,
I don't like it. It is unsightly,
and
and it lowers our property values.
how much does it lower your property values? Exactly. Or are you just making an assumption?
Well,
Didn't she have a gravel driveway when you bought your home?
yes, but
Did you complain about lower property values then? Was the price of your home too low?
no, but
So, you don't like Mrs. Chow's gravel driveway. Have you ever offered to help pay for her driveway to be replaced since she can't afford it?
no. Why would I?
Have you ever offered to help put in the work yourself to replace her driveway since she can't do it?
No. Look, I don't like gravel driveways and they shouldn't be allowed in our neighborhood.
So what are you going to do about it?
My friends and I are going to convince the city council to pass an ordinance to force people to replace their gravel driveways.
And if you and your friends are successful, how will the city council force people like Mrs. Cho to do that?
I don't know. A fine or something.
So you would empower the city to take money away from people, including people on a fixed income, because they won't or can't replace their perfectly usable gravel driveway.
Well,
What if someone like Mrs. Cho can't pay, or if they refuse to pay the city the money that the city demands?
I guess they would have to go to court or something.
And what if they refuse to pay the fine and ignore the court summons?
Then they would be arrested.
Really? So over a perfectly good gravel driveway that you don't like, you want to empower the government to demand money from people or to send armed men to their homes to remove them by force and cage them.
But that's not.
You do know what arrest means. You do know that it involves armed men taking someone and putting them in a cage. Right.
A jail. The police will arrest them and put them in jail for not paying the fine and not going to court.
Does it matter to the person being kidnapped by armed men and placed in a cage over a gravel driveway whether it's called a jail or a cage, or whether the armed men are called police or not? It is the same thing.
But that's not.
And if the person won't submit themselves to be taken by armed men and forced into a cage, what then? What if they fight back? What then?
I guess that the police might, I don't know, shoot them.
Yes. There is a very good chance that the police would shoot them if they fought back. So, over your estate for a perfectly usable gravel driveway, you would ask your local government to force people to replace their driveways. And if they don't, then you would then ask your local government to forcefully demand money from your neighbor. And if your neighbor refuses to pay, then you would ask your local government to send armed men to their home to kidnap and cage them. And if they don't submit to being kidnapped and caged, you think that they should be executed.
Well, when you put it that way,
That is the way it is, Ellen. Whether you and your friends gang up on someone who has a driveway that you don't like and force them to give you money if they don't replace it, or you put them in a cage, or execute them if they don't, or if you have a group of city, county, or state employees do the violent, dirty work for you, it is the same thing.
I think I understand what you're saying. But wouldn't that apply to just about anything government does or any laws that are passed?
Yes. Yes, it actually does apply. Any power that a government uses is backed by the threat of force. When I give my consent to the adoption of a law, I specifically instruct the police, the government, to take either the life, liberty, or property of anyone who disobeys that law. And I tell them that if anyone resists the enforcement of the law, they are to use any means necessary, yes, even putting the lawbreaker to death or putting him in jail to overcome such resistance. I believe we should use extreme care before lending our support to any proposed government program or law. We should fully recognize that government is no plaything. As George Washington warned, government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. It is an instrument of force, and unless our conscience is clear that we would not hesitate to put a man to death, put him in jail or forcibly deprive him of his property for failing to obey a given law. We should oppose it.
Wow. Did you come up with it on your own?
No. Actually, I was quoting one of my favorite spiritual leaders who spoke often on the topic of freedom, a man named Ezra Taft Benson.
Ezra Taft Benson. Wasn't he a leader of the Mormon Church?
Yes. Ezra Taft Benson was the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for a number of years. Millions around the world considered him to be God's prophet on earth. He also served in a cabinet position in the Eisenhower administration, and he spoke and wrote extensively on the concepts of freedom and the evils of government. But he didn't come up with these ideas about freedom on his own. He based most of his ideas about freedom on Scripture, on the words of our founding fathers, and on the philosophies of John Locke. Those philosophies are what our whole nation was founded upon.
I didn't know all this. I just thought, I don't know what I thought, but now I have a lot to think about.
I think that we all have a lot to think about, Ellen. We need to think about what we the people continually ask our government to do in our name, and whether that authority is legitimate authority or if it violates people's individual and inalienable rights. I don't pretend to know all the answers. I have a lot to learn. We all have a lot to learn.